Hi. So it's around 40 hours now since India had that heartbreaking loss against England in the third test at Lords. And it gives us a little better frame of mind without the emotions and without the frustration to look at the game with a fresh perspective and to find out what went wrong where. But before that, I was just going through some of the articles, some of the tweets, some of the interviews, some of the podcasts by some ex players, experts, commentators, and a lot of Indian fans and all who were giving an impression that India had nothing to worry because India was playing much better cricket. India was the dominant side, England was poor, and India was better than England in all aspects. It's just that India lost the match, and in fact, there was more positives for India because India showed the character and great application and rearguard action, and the never say die attitude came to the front, and India actually converted a hopeless situation into almost a match-winning performance thanks to the resilience shown by the number 10 and number 11 batters in the company of Jadeja, and they came within 22 runs of the England's target. So actually, India is actually should feel much confident and better. And going into the fourth test, there is no reason why India can't win it comfortably and once again tie the test series. And who knows, by fifth test, India can be the winner also. So that's the kind of more or less the feelings and the kind of narrative that has been going on. And I thought I wanted to just have this vlog of mine to put that into the perspective. And I will tell you that I don't disagree with this assertion or this analysis by most of our experts and great ex-players and commentators and even some of the fans. It's just that most of the things I agree, but there is one missing part which has been missed by most of these experts and the so-called jingoistic fans and some great supporters and commentators, which I'll come subsequently to, that what was that missing part in all these assumptions and analysis. And I will come to it towards the later part of my blog. But first, let me first validate what all these people have been telling from this part of the world or from our country. And in fact, I am going to first validate what they have said, and then I will tell what has they been missing in their piece. Now let's first address the fundamental issue, England and India, and how they have been with regard to each other. Of course, there is no doubt that India has been the better side across all formats, across all say aspects of the cricket, not only in this test, over the last three tests. But if we specify this test, or if we keep our focus on this test, undoubtedly India was the dominant side for most part of it, and England have been poor, and they have been one of the most ordinary sides that England had put up in the last few decades. And I will tell you point by point how it has been. Just think, Lords is a pitch which England, being it their home ground, they were absolutely bang on target, knowing how it was going to behave. They knew it would be a batting paradise for the first 3 to 4 days, and it's only in the fourth innings and maybe towards the fifth day it will become tougher and tricky and challenging for the batters. So this is one place they were forced to change their strategy, and they didn't want to just bowl first and chase anything that India would give them in the fourth innings, because the pitch was not going to be as flat as Headingley, and they didn't want to take that chance. So they wanted to take the full advantage of one more win in the toss, this time by batting first, which was a fantastic decision. Now it's a different thing that Shubman Gill also wanted to bowl first. That's what at least he told. That could have been a disastrous thing coming from a player who, or a captain who, that means had not read the conditions or the pitch well. But that will keep to subsequently. Will for the later part. First concentrate on the England side. So they won a great toss. They were bang on target in assessing the pitch. They decided to bat first, which was the perfect decision on a pitch which was flat and a batting paradise to start with. Then what do? They make it even much better for them by just playing smart cricket like how they played in Headingley and in the second innings, and they neutralized Bumrah completely in the first spell, because neutralizing Bumrah was the first and fundamental aim for a team which aims to build a big score on the scoreboard, batting first on a batting paradise, and then to put pressure on the opponent side. So they were smart, they were clever. Once again, they played a different type of baseball approach with a conservative approach and smart approach to nullify and neutralize Bumrah. By that, they did two things. First, they safeguarded themselves and the team and ensured that they were putting a foundation for a big total, because this Duke's Pearl, after 25-30 overs, becomes soft and becomes almost toothless. Then no bowler can get any benefit out of it. So when you just manage to neutralize the match winning bowler from your opponent in their first spell of 5 to 6 overs, you have almost won a big part of the battle, which England did it. So they were smart, they neutralized Bumrah. But then what happens when now they were supposed to build on that and then play aggressively, and then they snatch the initiative? They surrendered 2 wickets to Nitish Kumar Reddy, of all the bowlers, the kind of bowler whom even India didn't have the confidence to bank on as a really wicket taking bowler. They were using him just to give some rest to Bumrah and Siraj and bring him back again. But no, England's poor approach, poor attitude, and lack of match temperament and lack of match intelligence and awareness again it was exposed when they surrendered 2 wickets, out of which one can say that okay, Crawley got a chaffer from Nitish Kumar Reddy. It was a fantastic ball, but then Dockett's wicket was a lame decision, lame selection of shot. It was very, very casual, and it didn't warrant that kind of a stroke in the first session of the first day of the Lord's Test. But anyway, so Dockett got out, and then Crawley was out to a Jaffer, and all the initiative that England had gained was surrendered within 1 over in the first session when they were 2 wickets down, and that too, it was almost like a bonus 2 wickets for the 5th bowler of Indian team, that is Nitish Kumar Reddy, whom India just wanted to use him to give rest to their frontline bowlers. Didn't have much hope on him, at least to take wickets against this formidable English batting lineup. But then England managed to do that, and they lost the initiative. Then after lunch, somehow Pope, in the company of their greatest player from English side and also at Lords and against India, that is Joe Root, did some good repair work, and they again looked well on course to bring back the initiative with them and snatch back the initiative, and again were on course to attain a big score which could have put pressure on India. Then what they did, Pope got out to Jadeja, the bowler who has been the least effective in terms of the Indian spinners, and he has been pretty toothless throughout the series so far. And on a first day pitch at Lords where there was nothing for the spinners, he just got a wicket once again as a bonus. So the first 3 wickets fell as bonus because Pope had a lapse of concentration, and he just gifted a wicket to Jadeja, to a spinner, that is Jadeja, and they were again 3 down. But then somehow Ben Stokes comes in, though he is not at all looking confident or temperamentally sound or technically adept or even looking skillful enough to handle the Indian bowling attack. But then this time he decided to grind in and stick in and then hang in there, because he knew in Root they had a fabulous player who has such a fantastic record at Lords. So he just wanted to give company and was waiting for the ball to get further and further rolled and softer, so that then it would be much easier for their remaining batting lineup to score big. He almost succeeds, and then they end the day in a pretty decent position of 251 for 4 after Harry Brooks' dismissal, that is, and Stokes and Root are on the crease, and they looked capable of taking their total to at least 450 if not 500, because that was a fantastic way to end the day. But the next day Bumrah comes and with all his fury and takes 3 wickets within no time to reduce them to 271 for 7, once again exposing the poor technique, poor temperament and lack of ability of English batters to handle genuine swing bowling or genuine moving ball, and it again showed that one-dimensional cricket they have, which gets exposed when there is a little help in the pitch or the bowler is world class. So from 251 for 4, they are reduced to 271 for 7. And once again, they have surrendered the initiative. Now from 450, their target score gets revised to even below 300. That ideally they should have been reduced to. And just imagine on a pitch like that, which has nothing really extraordinary going for a seam bowler on a slightly older ball, they should have actually cashed in on that and scored 450, 500. But they were now looking or staring at a below 300 total, which they should have. And for reason that I will come to again subsequently, where India had issues, they got a reprieve at 271 for 7, where they could have been actually reduced to 8 down very soon, and that could have really ensured that they were actually dismissed for 300. But anyway, they got a reprieve and they once again got a chance to build on that innings thanks to some really brilliant, we have to give credit there to brilliant rearguard action and counter attacking from Jamie Smith, and a good solid batting from Braden Cars. And that's where they managed to score 387, which was a monumental effort if you consider that they were 271 for 7 and actually could have been 8 down also very soon. So from there it was a monumental effort, but it was still a below par total when you have won a toss and batting on a flat pitch with most part of your batters actually batting on the with a softer ball on the second day, and yet you ended up with 387, which was actually a below par total. And that's where they again surrendered the initiative and all the benefit of winning the toss. Now let's come to the Indian batting. Again, England had a chance to put pressure on India because they dismissed Jaiswal for a change early, but when India were again reduced to 107 for 3, there was again a chance for England to cash in on that. But their bowling was so toothless, and there was not a single bowler other than Ben Stokes who looked capable of even doing well in their own condition on their own pitch, even though the pitch was flat. But at least the new ball had something to offer, and India looked so potent, at least with Bumrah and Siraj with the new ball. But English bowlers were looking completely toothless, and none of them looked good till the time Ben Stokes could come in and started using his X factor to create problem. So they allowed again India to build on that innings when Rahul and Pant came, and then the pitch looked as flat as a highway. The bowlers looked so pedestrian and so incompetent, and Rahul and Pant looked like they could go on and on and on and score big daddy centuries and take India easily to a total of around 485 to 500. That could have given them a 100-run lead, which could have been a match-winning lead considering how the match went. But again, it was for different reason, nothing to do with English bowling or English attack, because a run out and a lapse of concentration by Rahul ensured Pant and Rahul got dismissed within a span of 6 runs, and India was reduced to 254 for 5 from 248 for 3. And from then onwards, again Jadeja and when Nitish Kumar Reddy and Washington Sundar came into bat, in England bowling was exposed and they were not looking at all incisive. They could not even create any trouble for Nitish Kumar Reddy and Washington Sundar, forget even Jadeja. And India once again managed to run away or escape from that position to reach 376 for 6. And once again, at least they looked capable of having a 40 to 50 runs lead, which could have been very handy in this kind of Lord's pitch where 4th innings and 3rd innings were so tough. But then there again, it was not credit to England or their bowlers. It was again one more collapse, this time a mini collapse by Indian tail, which allowed India to lose 4 wickets for 11 runs, and that's how they ended up with 387. Now just imagine England, by a clear case of good luck and a gift from India, managed to see that India didn't have a lead even after all these things. But then what did they do? Knowing that it was now so easy for them to just get 240, even the pitch was becoming a little tricky and challenging on the 4th day, but 240, 250 was a total which was very easily reachable or achievable, and it was very easy for England to achieve that because they knew all they had to do was to neutralize Bumrah once again and allow the ball to turn 20-25 overs old, and then they could bat on like just how Jadeja batted with Nitish Kumar Reddy and Washington Sundar in the first innings, and they could easily score 250 if not 280 or 300 or 350. But then what did they do? This time they again allowed Siraj to take wickets, even though they managed to neutralize Bumrah, but not because of their credit. This time the credit has to go to the luck and the destiny, and the lady luck was smiling for them, because Bumrah, on a spell where he was actually unplayable and English players had no clue, England batters were looking so mediocre against him, he could have ended up with 5 wickets, but God knows how he ended up without a wicket, how many chances that could have been created, how many times he beat both the batters, especially Crawley and all, and somehow he didn't get the wicket. But yet, in spite of being so lucky, England managed to mess up and they handed over wickets to Siraj, and then they managed to find a match-winning bowler in India in the form of Washington Sundar, at least a potential match-winning bowler. That time it looked a match-winning bowler, because on a Lord's pitch which was becoming tricky on the 4th day and was helping the seamers with the new ball, when the pitch became better because of the lack of bounce or the softness in the ball in the after 30-25 overs, and then the seam bowlers also began to feel the pinch and they didn't get as much help. Washington Sundar started getting wickets from this English batting, which showed that they were neither adept at playing against the seam bowling on a seam friendly pitch, nor able to play the pace bowlers after the ball turned soft, and they were not even able to play freely or even at least keep their wickets intact in front of a spin bowler who was not playing purely as a specialist match winning bowler or a wicket taking bowler. He was playing more as a bowler who could bat and give some runs to avoid the mini collapses which India had been having, or the collapses which India has been having in the first test and the first innings and the third test. But surprisingly, he took 4 wickets on a pitch which had no demons or in terms of spin or turn or bounce, and that included some of the best players. That included players like Root, Stokes, and it was really surprising how he could manage to get those wickets, and that ensured England somehow manufactured a batting collapse to get reduced to or get bundled out for 192, which was unthinkable even if you could play as casually as possible, because once the ball was softer, it was impossible to dislodge even for a pace bowler. But England somehow managed to lose wickets and were allowed for 192, and that gave India 193 to win. And it was clear that irrespective of how tricky the pitch could be, it was not as unplayable as to suggest that it would be difficult or impossible to score 193. So India was once again the match in its command and its pocket, and 193 should have been easily chaseable. But there again, in the first spell, it was not some extraordinary bowling by England that reduced India to 58 for 4 and almost sealed the game for India, because that afternoon or that last half an hour session at the Lords on the 4th day was more crucial, even more crucial than the 4 wickets they lost in the first session of the 5th day, because the pressure was actually built up on the 4th day evening. If they had gone to the pavilion or to the dressing room with just 1 wicket down, which they should have, it could have been such a different psychological impact on England, and also they could have been so high that it would have been just a cakewalk to achieve that 193. But then somehow they managed to lose wickets, and just let's not forget, all the other bowlers in the opening spell were looking very ordinary. Wokes was not having any kind of effect, and Jofra Archer got a ball out of pure luck and because of some real stupidity by Jaiswal, who had ego taking over him to go on a rampage against Archer, and on a completely innocuous delivery he just got out. And then except Ben Stokes, nobody was looking like wicket taking, but somehow in the last half an hour they lost 3 more wickets, and that had nothing to do with their bowling credential, more to do with the opponents, and they reduced India to 58 for 4. And in the next day, once again, Archer was not actually lethal, though he bowled pretty well to take that one wicket, which was so crucial, and that was a brilliant ball to take Punt's wicket. But other than that, in general, his balls were spread all across, and he was bowling a lot of balls on the leg stump, and he was getting flicked, and there was not much pressure he was able to do. But because he took that wicket, and because of that marathon effort of 9.3 overs non-stop that Ben Stokes bowled like a spinner, without dropping his pace or intensity or his impact, and with that X factor and the kind of way he actually took the most vital wicket, that of Rahul, that changed the course of the match and almost ensured that India didn't have the kind of composure and calming experience and influence of Rahul to guide them as an experienced player, and that's where almost the final line was drawn in India's destiny. So again, no credit or no great credit to England bowlers, and naturally, when the ball became softer, their bowling was once again exposed. Even though they were playing in their own backyard, they didn't have any other way to negate that softness of the ball or the ineffectiveness of the ball to actually pick up one of the two wickets easily. Those two tail-enders who have been actually getting dismissed so cheaply earlier also, and their batting is actually nothing to boast about. But both Siraj and Bumrah, in a combined manner, played for 84 balls. That means 14 overs, and they were not looking at all in any trouble, and they were almost looking like frontline batters. And Jadeja was looking like Bradman. He was looking unremovable, unbeatable, untouchable. Nobody could even put an impact. And even England bowlers also gave up on him. They tried to play with a defensive attitude of giving him a single and hoping that in the remaining 2 balls of every over, they could try to take or snap out the wickets of either Bumrah and Siraj when they came in. And no wonder that India, in spite of all these things, managed to reach within 22 runs of the English target, and they could have won it if they were a little lucky, or if Siraj would not have got out to that unfortunate way, or Bumrah had not lost patience. So that again shows that English bowling, how miserable or how average or how mediocre they were, bearing for a couple of balls here and there. One dismissal of Rahul and one dismissal of Pant in the second innings. There is not a single ball which looked really capable of taking a wicket of a good batter on any particular day in a test match when you are playing test match cricket. So somehow there again bowling was exposed, and it clearly looked how India was much more potent and incisive compared to England, even with in the new ball as well as the older ball when the ball gets soft. So yes, India managed to reach within 22 runs, and India lost it because it was too late. They had lost too many wickets by lunch, and they had only 2 wickets left with 80 runs. So even with all the average effort or mediocre bowling of England, they somehow managed to win because it was too big a target or too big a mountain for India to climb, and that's where they lost out. So all in all, if we compare, England's bowling has been mediocre. They have been less incisive than Indian seam attack in the beginning of every spell of the new ball, as well as even towards the middle part of the innings where the ball gets softer. English bowlers have not looked as good as a Bumrah or a Siraj, even Akashdeep. Now coming to their bowling spin attack, it was always expected that Indian spin attack would be better than them, and yes, even though Jadeja has been ineffective, but Washington Sundar came to the party and he was way ahead of the whole match in terms of the spin bowling, and he was so effective. He took 4 wickets and he could have been the match winning bowler if India had gone on to win. Compared to that, Shoaib Basir has not been effective at all, either in this match or throughout the series. So he has been pretty listless, which was expected also because India is supposed to play spin better. And the pitches have not also been turning. They have been quite flat pitches on the first 2 tests, and even in this test there was not much turn. Now third thing, the most crucial thing, is the batting. Now surprisingly, without Rohit and without Virat, everybody knows India has been brilliant in the first 2 tests. Somebody may have a counter argument that the pitches were flat, so they were not tested. Here they were tested and they have been found out in the 4th innings. But if you see, in the major part of the first innings also, they were much better than England. And but for Joe Root's effort, England could have been in real trouble. And but for that stupid error of judgment by Pant and Rahul, where there was so much obsession to give a chance to Rahul to score a century before tea, that created that run out, and then that lapse of concentration by Rahul. So because of those couple of errors at the critical moments, which had nothing to do with the English bowling. The Indian batters were struggling to reach 387, but they in overall, if you see man to man, that you compare the batting temperament, attitude, skill, and also even in terms of how they were looking while batting. Indian batters have been looking much better, much compact, much more effective, much more impactful, and they are looking much comfortable than England. It's a different thing that for different regions, the two teams landed up at a tied score, but there were plenty of chances for India to have at least 50 to 100 run lead. But then that mini collapse and also those two critical dismissals, which turned out to be the most decisive, especially Pant's run out in the entire match, actually did the damage to India's chances. But if you see man to man, if you see how Rahul has been looking as an opener, how even Karan Nair, till the time he gets dismissed, how compact, how calm and quiet and unperturbed he looks, how has been Gill overall in the series, and if you see how Brook has been playing, what kind of shot he is playing, and if you compare that with Washington Sundar and Nitish Kumar Reddy, it would be embarrassing for Brook to have played the kind of shot he played in the second innings. The way Ben Stokes has been struggling, yes, his contribution has been good in terms of the overall context of the match, but 40 and 33 for a really established batter like him, who has had such fabulous success in the past, who has had big centuries in the Ashes Test, the kind of batting he has been doing, he has been struggling. Of course, he hung in as a leader, and he knew the challenges that they would be facing, or India would be facing in the fourth innings. So he wanted to contribute how much he could be, and in that context, 40 and 33 may be important if you add the bowling effort and the run out he did. But purely as a batting effort, he has not even reached a 50. So yes, Joe Root has been brilliant, but Crawley is really looking not like a test class batter, and he must be thanking his stars that he's still being pursued, and he has been continued by the English team management, and he is getting a chance, too many, to continue in this series. He could have been dropped playing for any other country because his stats, his average don't also indicate any kind of confidence, and his performances, his dismissals, he's clueless, he's completely at sea against Indian seam bowlers, and he has never been looking good except for that second innings at the Headingley, and he is extremely lucky. He doesn't look like a test class opener anymore. So if you see his batting, if you see Win Dockett's, some very casual and lethargic and very impetuous kind of batting, not befitting a test match kind of a performance against some quality bowling like Bumrah and all, and Siraj. If you see Harry Brook has been really horrendous in that second innings, so their batting was also poor. So yes, I agree with all the analysts, all the experts, all the ex-players, all the jingoistic fans to that part when they say India was better in all departments over England individually, and they were the dominant side. That is true. And when they say that India can come back and win the fourth test, I fully agree, because India has been the better side, so it should not be surprising if India plays according to the form and then wins the fourth test. That is also acceptable. But where I have a little problem is that, where I find the missing part is to not address the question that India lost that test. And yes, if we agree that England has been really very, very average in terms of their temperament and technique and batting skills, and very, very ordinary in terms of the kind of bowling attack they have unleashed in this series and also in this test match, then that question becomes more important to ask, or more relevant, that if England has been so poor, then how can we say that there is nothing to worry, or India is brilliant, or India is going to definitely win, or India is the dominant side? No, the question becomes more relevant to ask. If it would have been a side with, if England would have been a side with Anderson and Broad and Wokes at his peak, and Bresnan, or maybe Hermishan, or God knows, those kind of, or Flintoff kind of bowlers, and then batters like Peterson or Bale or Trott or Alistair Cook, then we could have said yes. Then India has been playing against such a strong team, and yet India has been dominating. So India actually has been punching above the West, and India is a better team, and India can even win if they continue to play like that. But the question comes that we have to ask the difficult question and the unpopular question, that even with such a poor side who has been also performing poorly, it's not that they are a mediocre side who has been performing brilliantly by getting inspired. No, they have been mediocre, and they have been even playing worse than their even potential in this series and also in this test, and yet they have won this test and they are 2-1 up. So that means India has been doing something really glaring, and some real big errors have been committed, and India has been goofing up and messing up. And then we have to analyze that. But unless we acknowledge that, and if you try to be jingoistic, it is not going to come out. And yes, now that we accept or acknowledge, then we can try to address what could be the reason. The only reason one can think of is that India has not been able to seize the decisive moments or the key moments where they have had a chance to actually seize the initiative or grab the momentum by the scruff of the neck when they are in that confident position, when they have done the difficult part, either in terms of batting when they have been looking so good. They should have actually gone on to play like how they played in the first innings of second test, not give a chance to your opponents. There should be no room for any kind of lapse of concentration or greed for some milestones or trying to have a brain fade moment or have those mini collapses. You should ensure, and you should have read the pitch to know that 387 was just not good enough. You have to have a 100-run lead that would neutralize England's benefit or advantage of winning the toss, and that would have given you a best chance to win the test, because you could have always put pressure in the third innings, and whatever score England would have scored, if you would reduce again 100 or 80 or 100 that from that total because of your lead in the first innings, it could have been barely a total to keep England in the contest, and that should have been your key strategy and objective. But then you miss that. So again, whether it's in the batting or whether it's in the bowling also, when you have seen that the opponent bowling is opponent batters are struggling so much, then they are really having problems with their temperament, technique and all, you have to find a way to dismiss their lower middle order and tail the way they have been doing it. Yes, you have done it so well in the second test, and that's how you won it, because England didn't have any resilience or their tail didn't work in either of the two innings. But again in the first innings here, after you reduced them to 271 for 7, you allowed Jamie Smith and Bryden Cars to have that huge partnership, and you allowed England to add nearly 116 runs for last 3 wickets. Just imagine, you lost 4 wickets for 11 runs and you allowed them to add 116 runs for last 3 wickets, and that's where you allowed them to score 387. So forget, even if you didn't match or you didn't manage to score 450, you could have still won this match with 387, because you could have dismissed England for 300 or 290. That was their status at that time, and that's how you were looking against those two their team. But you allowed them to escape, and once you allowed them 387, you had to score a bigger score, and again there you messed up again. And that's where, and again in the final innings, after you dismissed England for 192, the match would have been yours comfortably, because you have 8 batters who are really capable, good batters. So if with 8 batters you can't score 193 runs on a pitch which was not a unplayable pitch, that the ball was not shooting, the ball was not hitting the chest and the face, and there was no such dangerous bounce or such prodigious movement like what one saw at the Savannah Park in the day-night test match 2 days back. There was nothing like that. It was a pitch which could have easily faced 250 runs with 5 to 6 wickets down. So you could have really taken that 193 as a bonus, and you could have really scored those runs barely with 4 to 5 wickets down. But then you just panicked, and there was some indecisiveness, confusion in that fourth afternoon, where you are trying to get into a shell. You are not understanding the Cars bowling, and you are giving gifted wickets in the form of Jaiswal, and then with almost 20 minutes to go, you sent a night watchman, that way a batter who has been part of a real tail end kind of a thing, not a capable batter to carry you through for 20 minutes of as a night watchman. Instead of sending either Nitish Kumar Reddy or even Washington Sundar, you sent him, and then his wicket goes down, and then 4 wickets down, even though 3 top order batters are down, but on paper it is 4. Then panic came in, and then all of a sudden you looked anxious, and all of a sudden it allowed England team to have a real confidence back in their ranks after such a poor performance with the bat, and they had a self-belief that now they could win it, and exactly that's what happened, with fresh bowlers coming in the morning, and Archer bowling that brilliant ball to dismiss Pant, and then Stokes following up with a superb endeavour to dismiss Rahul, and then the match was almost all but done. It was done and dusted almost, till you had that resilience because of the time the softness of the ball came into the picture. So yes, India have to be aware of the game. They have to aware of the fact that after 30-35 overs they can really uh, cash in and punish the mediocre English attack, bowling attack, to score big. Not like some 350, 400 kind of score. They should try to score 500, because their batters have been given that kind of form thanks to some stupid and poor decision by England in playing those flat pitches on the first two tests, and where they allowed India frontline batters to have that confidence. If they had played on a green top and would have reduced India to say 70 for 6 or 70 for 5 in the first two tests, that would have shattered the confidence of the frontline batters without Rohit and Kohli's experience, and that would have ensured that English bowlers, even if they were little average, they could have always have some psychological effect on Indian batters. But that anyway, the ship has sailed. England have given that initiative to Indian batters by giving so many batters chances to score centuries in the first test. And even though India lost that test, but the batters came into the second test with confidence that they could bat, and they could bat big and score big even on these English pitches, and that's how it was reflected when they scored 550 plus in the first innings, and they looked so invincible in both the innings with their batting. So it is very difficult now to put that dead, but somehow with the fourth innings effort of India, England has managed to put that psychological boost to themselves, and also put a scar on India's batting, hopefully. And now if they want to cash in on that, they have to continue to play on seaming tracks, or at least tracks with some assistance for seam bowling with a little grass. They can't play on those flat wickets, which would be more suiting India and would be more like a subcontinent pitch. And on that kind of pitch, Indian batters should be always come into the picture and always come into the front. And with 8 kind of batters and the kind of uh, average and ordinary bowling England have, they would be struggling. And once Indian batters score big on those flat pitches, Indian seamers are going to be much more effective, and Indian spinners will also come into the picture, and our seam attack has been much better than England, and that's what has been happening in the first two tests. Luckily they escaped in the first test, but second test they couldn't escape. In the third test, the moment there was a little assistance, even though their bowling was ordinary, even though the softer ball exposed them more, and even though Indian bowlers actually showed them how to bowl in both the innings with the new ball, but somehow they managed to escape because India failed to seize the important moments or the crucial moments or some critical moments. And just to give finally some examples, if Pant's run out was the turning point, if Rahul's dismissal was crucial, also you remember allowing Jamie Smith and Braden Carrs was big and was also a turning point. But remember, before that, when they were 271 for 7, Rahul dropped an absolute sitter of Jamie Smith, which could have made them 274 for 8, and that could have guaranteed even England, with whatever resilience shown by Carrs, that they would have been dismissed for less than 290 or 285. Just imagine with 300 run lead where India would have been placed by now, and how we would be talking so differently about this pitch. So again, a crucial dropped catch, crucial run out, lapse of concentration, allowing their tail to whack, allowing them to score big, letting your tail to again lose confidence and have a mini collapse, and again doing those errors of judgment in terms of batting in the first innings and the fourth innings on the fourth day, and again that Jaiswal's impetuousness. So there has been those 4-5 moments which India has failed to capitalize, and that's where India lost. But if you see the bigger picture, for most part of all the 5 days, or especially at least the 4 days, yes, India was the better side. Was the dominant side. India should have won. But why it looked a victory was eluding us, and why England managed to win? Not because luck was against us, or actually we were so brilliant and so impressive. The fact is, we have goofed up, we have messed up, we have to acknowledge, and we have messed up not in terms of sessions and days, but in terms of crucial 4 to 5 moments or balls or situations where we just handed over the initiative back to England, even though they were not ready to accept, because they were playing so bad and so mediocre cricket, but we forcibly gifted them, and they finally grabbed it in the 4th day. So yes, we have to acknowledge that, and if we work on this, just like how we worked on the second test, we can win the 4th test. But there are concerns for India to address and concerns for India to look at and acknowledge and be candid about it, and then they can work on it. And hopefully, in the fourth test at Manchester, they will address it and they will come on top of England, because England doesn't show any signs of any improvement, or they don't have the personnel or the resources either in batting or in bowling right now to give them that edge. So hopefully India can cash in by a little improvement to seize the initiative at the crucial moments on the fourth test. Thank you.